everybody, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. You know, I talked about this in a previous video, but I watched the Flemming Rasmussen series where he talked about producing and recording Metallica. He was responsible for Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Injustice for All. And when we were kids, we always heard these rumors about the amps that Metallica used in the studio, and one that kept coming up was the Mesa Boogie. And I was confused because I thought they always used like Marshall Stacks or something. You know, when you're young, that's like the dream amp for everybody. I believe they use Marshalls for Ride the Lightning, but in Master of Puppets and Justice, they used this little beauty right here, the Mesa Boogie Mark II C+. Now, it was always a dream to own one, but I never thought it would be possible. And so after watching that series, though, I got excited about the prospect of owning one of these things. So I kind of kept an eye out online. I'm like, if I see one for like a great deal, maybe I'll pick it up. I'm not sure. And the other day on Guitar Center's website, I found one that was like an open box item. And so I would save about $600 on the price, which is a good amount. I mean, this thing is not cheap. So I just kept thinking, you know what? I've waited my whole life basically for this thing. Let's just pull the trigger on it and go for it. Plus, I thought, you know, if it's not really what I wanted, or maybe I find out I can't really afford it, I'll just return it within 45 days because Guitar Center has that policy. Or so I thought. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Well, the manager guy goes back, grabs the box, comes out, and I noticed that the box had a huge gash in the side of it. And I'm like, oh, great. I was like, I know this is an open box item, but this is ridiculous. I'm like, you know what, though? If it's messed up or broken, you know, I'll just return it because I had already paid for it online. And the manager gave me this look and he shook his head. He's like, actually, with open box items, that gets a little tricky. I don't think we could do that. And I kept thinking, that's weird because if you buy a used guitar and it's not what you want, you could return it within 45 days, no problem. So he pulls out the head, puts it on the counter, and then he pulls out a bunch of cables and stuff it came with. It actually came with two pedals. One is this lead rhythm switcher pedal. Isn't that kind of crazy? It looks actually like an effects pedal. And then there's a separate one that's for the reverb and the EQ section. I don't think I'm going to be using that thing, so it'll probably just end up in my closet, in my bin of things that I don't want to get rid of. I'm afraid to get rid of, but I know I'll never use. So he's like, do you still want it? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I've come this far. Let's just go for it. Take a chance. I'll bring it back to my studio. Hopefully everything's cool. I go to pick it up off the counter, and the thing weighs twice as much as I thought it was going to because it's a smaller head. So I thought it was going to be like 20 pounds. I go to pick it up. I almost pull my arm out of my shoulder, you know? It weighs closer to 40 pounds. Well, I bring it back to the studio and right away I hook it up to my Marshall cabinet. So I have it right now hooked into my 4x12 Marshall 1960s vintage cabinet. And right away I ran into an issue. It's funny because anyone who owns this amp is probably going to be laughing their ass off at me because they probably went through a lot of the same stuff. I couldn't find where to plug it in. There was no port in the back. I took my phone out, I used the light, I was searching everywhere for it, and I looked on the sides even, I was getting desperate. I looked underneath it, I'm like, there's no way. Well, after a lot of frustration, I find out it's actually tucked inside over here, in about 1.5 inches, and then straight up. So it took me 5 minutes with I even have skinnier fingers. I couldn't get it in there properly. And even when I did finally kind of find the port, I couldn't tell if it was pushed in all the way or not. I thought that would suck to get to a gig. You're trying to hook it up and you can't even plug the damn thing in. You're like panicking before the show. Okay, so crisis averted. I finally got it plugged in. I turned it on and I realized that the person who owned this beforehand, because it was an open box, like I said, left the standby button on. So that sucked. Because, you know, you want to warm up the tubes first, then turn on the standby. So I flicked that off, just hoping I didn't do any damage. And I thought, man, we're off to a great start here. Jeez. I decided to zero everything out. So basically flatline the EQ, because I wanted to start from the beginning. I didn't want to have it set to what the last person who owned it had it set to. I kind of looked at the directions at the top. This is like a quick guide, quick start guide. But like a lot of guys, I hate directions. And I thought, you know what? I know how to use an amp, and I just kind of tossed that aside. Okay, I think I have the perfect guitar for this demonstration. We got the old Explorer, of course. Now, something I really loved about this amp head, because I saw some demonstrations online, was that it has a very solid clean sound, as well as an insane metal tone, of course. So after letting it warm up, I turned it on, and I basically turned up the master just enough to hear whatever was happening when it was all like, you know, flatlined. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good for clean sound. I turned it up a little bit. I added a little bit more bass, kind of messed around with the EQ here. I decided to mess with the graphic EQ. You always got to do the V shape, right? And then in the back, there's actually a presence and a reverb knob. And I tried those out. The presence is great because it kind of adds a sparkle to everything, but I didn't really love the reverb because it's very tight, springy sounding. And I thought, I could have done without it, but it's cool to have it as an option, for certain things. We'll just leave that off. I'll put presence to like 5. I'm just feeling it out here. So I was pretty happy with the clean sound right off the bat. I thought, you know what though? We're just one switch away from Master of Puppets tone. I was so excited. So I had to mess around a little bit, but I found out that almost every one of these dials, all but one, is a pull-out dial knob. So I found out to engage the distortion side of the amp, you have to pull one of the dials out. So it's this one right here. Let me turn it down a little bit. And I was so excited. When I pulled it, I was like, okay, now we should have like, battery tone going on here. I was like, wait, what? That sounded like ass. To me, it sounded like an old fuzz pedal that was kind of malfunctioning. I kind of got a lump in my throat and I'm like, oh no, is this thing defective? Is that why the last person returned it? Maybe there's something wrong with this particular unit. So I tried in vain to just mess with different things. I pulled out some knobs. I turned some EQs up and down. I tried everything, almost everything. I ended up turning up the gain. I thought that's going to make a difference at least. Let's see. It was at this point that my heart sunk and I just could picture the Guitar Center manager just looking at me with that look like, sorry, dude, you're out $3,000. But then I thought, what I wanted to do initially was watch the Flemming Rasmussen video again and go to the part where he actually tells you step by step how to set this head. And I don't know, what do I have to lose? Let's just go for it. I wasn't too hopeful though, because I thought, man, if it sounds this bad, the way it is, I don't think some EQ tweaks are going to make a big difference. So I watched the Flemming video and I literally changed the knobs in real time as he was shouting them out. He's like, okay, volume 1, let's go to 9. That was weird. Treble, put it at 7 and then pull the knob out. Now this is the part where I was just knocked to the ground. It said bass 1 3/4. And I thought, that's a mistake. He hand wrote out all those details, and I thought, he just can't read his own writing. This is from 1986, How could the bass knob be at 1 3/4? That's bizarre. But I was desperate. I was willing to try it. So, 1 3/4. That might be more closer to 2, but it's hard to tell from this angle. Middle, he had at about 4. Master, he had it at 4, but I do not want to blow the walls out here because this gets so loud at 4. I'm just going to leave it at about 2. He had the lead drive, which is going to be your gain, at 7 pulled out. And by the way, he pulled the master out as well, and that's going to give you some crazy depth. I'll show you in a second. The lead master, he has it at 5, and then the presence at about 4.5. So I'm just going to have to feel this out. Okay, I am going to now play something, and I'm going to turn it up slowly. And you're going to hear that big changes have taken place. A huge wave of relief hit me. I'm just like, oh my God, this thing can actually sound like I imagined it sounding. It felt so good. It was like I unlocked like a bank vault with all these different combinations being correct, and it opened up and a pile of cash fell on me. It's crazy to have 3 of the dials pulled out. It's so specific that you need that. If you don't have one of them, let's say I turn the master back. If I don't pull the master out, it sounds a lot more thin. Kind of scary that drastic of a change of sound can happen with a little click, but that's just the way this amp is. Now here's why it sounded so terrible, and if I would have just read some instructions or watched a few videos or even read some comments on my social media, because I posted that I was going to get this head, and a couple of people actually tried to warn me. They're like, Mike, this is not like an EQ of like any other head. You're going to be so confused and want to return the damn thing if you don't do these things the right way. So I guess the problem is the bass knob. If it's past 2, it feeds too much frequency. This is just, you know, a simple way of putting it from what I understand, into the overdrive section of the head. And so you push it too hard and it becomes mushy. It's like it can't handle it or something. It just turns everything to fuzz. So watch, I'll play this again and I'll turn the bass up so you can hear. Now, because all the other settings are good, that wasn't nearly as bad as it was earlier, is it? But it's still more like a big muff type sound, which is not Master of Puppets at all. It's a cool sound if you're doing like, you know, White Stripes or Sabbath or something, some early Sabbath. But when it comes to wanting that, you know, Justice for All tone, that's not what you want. You want that cutting, non-mushy sound. That's what I was looking for. By the way, this graphic EQ section, from what I know, I'm still doing a lot of research, is applied after the gain stage. So that's why I can mess with this low end and it won't be nearly as crazy or detrimental as if I messed with that blasted bass knob down there. So I finally have that screaming metal tone. And I'm excited because with a click of a button or a dial, I can go to that epic clean sound too if I want. So it'll be like the John Petrucci thing where he's got such great clean tone, but also he can have that ripping. Now, I love the way it sounded by itself, but I thought, how is it going to sound if I record it and I'd layer it? So last night I took some time and I recorded some drum and bass tracks, and then I laid a couple riffs over the top of it, and turned out pretty cool. So I'm actually going to end this video with that so you can check out how this sounds when it's recorded and mixed. And I think you're going to see why I'm so excited about this whole thing. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching, and enjoy the riffage. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.